Trump family, advisors decorate the tree of shame in SNL cold open. Scarlett Johansson made a surprise cameo as Ivanka Trump, bringing an ornament of Roy Moore, the GOP candidate for the Alabama Senate seat who lost on Tuesday to Democrat Doug Jones. During Saturday Night Live's cold open, Alec Baldwin's President Donald Trump didn't just decorate any old Christmas tree. It was a tree that paid tribute to the haters and losers the president destroyed during his first year in office. It was the tree of shame. Kiss Gene Simmons accused of sexual misconduct in lawsuit. "I've had an amazing, absolutely amazing first year in office," Baldwin said, reprising his role as the president. "A lot of people have been saying it was the greatest year in the history of America, and maybe the entire planet Earth." Baldwin's Trump also announced, the war on Christmas is over, and that it will soon be replaced by the war with North Korea. Batali includes cinnamon roll recipe in misconduct apology. Advisor Kellyanne Conway, played by Kate McKinnon, brought an ornament with former FBI Director James Comey's face on it for the loser tree. "Sadly, I had to fire Comey because he's a nut job," Baldwin's Trump said, quickly adding, "and also because he knew all my secrets." Press Secretary Sarah Huckabee Sanders, played by Aidy Bryant, brought ornaments of former Press Secretary Sean Spicer and former Communications Director Anthony Scaramucci. She called them mangled corpses. She stepped over to get this job. Vice President Mike Pence, played by Beck Bennett, brought an ornament of former National Security Advisor Mike Flynn, staunchly affirming that Flynn lied to us and acted alone, without our knowledge. Scarlett Johansson made a surprise cameo as Ivanka Trump, bringing an ornament of Roy Moore, the GOP candidate for the Alabama Senate seat who lost on Tuesday to Democrat Doug Jones. Baldwin's Trump asks where her husband, Jared Kushner, is, and she says he is packing a go bag before the FBI arrives. Trump's sons, played by Alex Moffat and Mikey Day, brought more ornaments of past administration members and introduced Elf on the Shelf, Jeff Sessions, played by McKinnon as well. McKinnon Sessions asks to put the angel, Robert Mueller, on the tree, because he's next. Omarosa Manigault Newman, played by Leslie Jones, tried to get the family's attention by playing the Apprentice theme song on a boombox in the window. The real Manigault Newman was fired from the administration Wednesday, December 13th. Weekend Update kicked off with the special election in Alabama for a U.S. Senate seat. "Congratulations to the new senator of Alabama, not Roy Moore," said co-host Colin Jost. Co-host Michael J. said the election proved to be an example of exactly why Republicans try to keep black people from voting, citing 98% of black women voting for Jones in Alabama. Jay joked that he chooses who he's voting for based on who he'd rather see approaching his car if he were pulled over. "And it's almost always not the one on a horse," Jay said. Leslie Jones returned as Omarosa Manigault Newman to demand a retraction on the story that she was fired from the Trump administration, insisting she left that job by choice. "I quit," Jones said. "I deactivated my ID card. I changed the locks on my own office. I escorted myself off the premises and then I threw myself into the bushes." Saturday was the third time comedian and actor Kevin Hart hosted SNL. During his monologue he talked about how, at first, he was reluctant to have a third child, venting that all of the fun responsibility lies on the shoulder of the father. The Foo Fighters performed 2 songs, "The Sky is a Neighborhood" and a medley of Christmas songs. Thank you for watching. For the follow-up, subscribe to the channel yourself here.
Aidy Bryant showed up as Sarah Huckabee Sanders, the White House press secretary, with ornaments that featured mugs of her predecessors, Anthony Scaramucci and Sean Spicer, whose mangled corpses I stepped over to get this job. Vice President Mike Pence Beck Bennett was next in line, apologizing for slurring his speech. He blamed a ginger ale. Then came this exchange, prompting one of the show's loudest laughs. "Mr. Baldwin, are you here to deck the halls, Mike?" "Mr. Bennett, I don't like that song because it mentions gay apparel." Omarosa Manigault Newman, the White House aide, who left her job this week, appeared outside an Oval Office window, in the form of Leslie Jones, before being promptly dragged away again. More on her later. Scarlett Johansson made a cameo as Ivanka Trump, offering an ornament of Roy Moore, the Alabama Republican, who on Tuesday lost his bid for the Senate. "I thought for sure he would win, until he lost. Then I said I always knew he would lose," Mr. Baldwin said, referring to Mr. Moore. "At least America knows that I finally supported an accused child molester." Ms. Johansson responded, "As I said, there is a special place in hell, and we're all there." Kevin Hart's interesting monologue. Kevin Hart was the SNL host, a three-peat, and his monologue focused mostly on having his third child. "I can admit to everybody that I wasn't excited about having a baby in the beginning. When we had the idea of having a baby, I wasn't thrilled. I didn't know if I wanted the baby. That's me being honest, don't judge me. In being honest, I didn't know if I wanted the baby. The reason why is because I have got 2 babies already. My daughter is 12, my son is 10. I told my wife, I said, babe, I got the best of both worlds. I did it. We married. So technically, those babies are your babies. That's what I told her. Those are your babies, too. She said, I know, but they are old, and I want new ones. I said, well, first of all, don't talk about my kids like they're used cars. Don't do that. Okay? These kids run perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with these kids. The monologue was interesting given that just this week, Mr. Hart had admitted on a New York radio show to cheating on his wife while she was pregnant. Ms. Jones returned as Ms. Newman during Weekend Update, insisting that she hadn't been fired. That's right, I quit, Ms. Jones said. I deactivated my ID card, changed the locks on my own office, I escorted myself off the premises, and then I threw myself into the bushes, and then a security guard showed up to once again escort Ms. Jones off the set, or maybe it was the other way around. You better take my arm, because I'm escorting you out of the studio, she said, referring to the guard, and you better throw me into the Christmas tree. This was the first SNL episode since it was announced that Colin Jost and Michael Che would become the co-head writers for the show. Mr. Jost Doug Jones has become the first Democrat to win a Senate seat in Alabama in over 20 years, said Roy Moore-Gross. Over 20 years? Mr. Che Democratic National Committee Chairman Tom Perez tweeted, Black women led us to victory, and we can't take that for granted. But I bet you will, and you know why? It's because Democrats know that black people aren't really Democrats. We just vote for the guy that looks less likely to put us on a boat. Here is how I vote. I look at both candidates. I listen to them speak, and then I ask myself, if I got pulled over, which one of these candidates would I rather see approaching my car? And it's almost always not the one on a horse. Mr. Jost police in Illinois arrested a man for drunk driving after he crashed his car into a ditch and told officers that his name was Burger King. Police then took out their tasers and had it their way. Mr. Che, the FCC approved a controversial plan to repeal net neutrality regulations. The move was spearheaded by FCC Chairman Ajit Pai, who I assume Trump picked because he looked at him one time and thought, I bet this guy does computers. Poor Shaquille O'Neal. This week, SNL took on the popular TNT basketball studio crew, featuring Charles Barkley, Kenan Thompson, Kenny Smith, Chris Redd, Ernie Johnson, Alex Moffat, and Mr. O'Neal being played by Mr. Hart. And while there were some digs at Mr. Barkley, the real butt of the sketch was Mr. O'Neal. At one point, Mr. Hart wished those of the Jewish faith a happy Hanukkah. Much of the sketch was non sequiturs from the O'Neal character, which, if you've ever watched NBA games on TNT, isn't too far off. Here is a smattering. Shaq can't ride no horse, feet don't touch the ground. But you can't beat a dead horse, because dead horses tell no tales, because they're horses who lost their tails. Yeah, well, let me tell you something. Every dog has his day, but it's nighttime, no time for dogs. Dogs don't sleep. So, it's cat time. Cats come out at night, freaks come out at night. Shaq a freak. At one point, Mr. Thompson responded, Shaq, it's like a whole bunch of words got jumbled up in your brain, and the fire marshal said, everybody out. And then there was the physical comedy, when Mr. Hart emerged from behind the studio desk on stilts to convey Mr. O'Neal's height. Kudos to Mr. Hart here. His portrayal of Mr. O'Neal wasn't spot on by any stretch, but it was funny. It was surely a writer's dream, in which a bunch of random words could be thrown at a performer with a guarantee they would get laughs. Office phone call revolved around Mr. Hart, who, instead of just excusing himself and going to the restroom during meetings, concocts elaborate phone calls to leave. This was a great example of the surrounding cast somehow managing to not break character during a sketch that plays to Mr. Hart's strength being absurd. Tonight, we raise our glasses to those who have to play it straight in sketches. Thank you for watching. For the follow-up, subscribe to the channel yourself here.
مهدی عسکری تنظیم میثم اکبری غافل شدم از گوشه قلبم داری میری عاشق شدنم دست تو بود اینجا گیری قبلا که میگفتی تا دنیا دنیا هست هم صحبت تنهایی من میشینه میری از من دور باشی که هر جور جون بگی میدم تا هم نفس من چی هم نفس من چی عشق و دل من چی زندگی من دلخوشی من دلخوشی من